Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Martin, and welcome to this webcast on illustrated and video career interest assessments. It's great to be here with you. I am a professor emeritus from the University of Oklahoma, where I directed the OU Zero Center and I founded the Zero Center for over 20 years, actually. And I was a professor in the Department of Educational Psychology. I taught in the special education program. And over the years, I've taught at different universities, but my main focus throughout my entire career from graduate school till now, and even before graduate school when I was working professionally, has been on what we can do to teach individuals with disabilities the skills they need to be successful to where they're going. Once they leave school, once they leave the programs that they're in, what can we teach them now to be more successful when they leave school? And over the years, I've developed numerous lesson packages, curriculum, if you will, developed assessments, delivered dozens and dozens of professional training workshops, taught numerous courses on transition education and other topics as well. And also have a few publications on the topic. So without further ado, let's jump into today's topic on illustrated and video career assessments. So allow me a couple minutes as I make sure I get all the right buttons pushed. I do have to push a couple of them to get this all started. So you should see the PowerPoint presentation now. And I press the detail and here we go. Many thanks to the Illinois Center for Transition and Work as the sponsor of this webcast and this series of webcasts. Pay attention to the Illinois Center for Transition and Work because they're doing some really cool things on transition and will continue to do so well into the future. As I mentioned earlier, our topic today is illustrated and video career interest assessments, and I'm Jim Martin. Today, here's what we're going to do. We're going to briefly review the purpose of special education. We will discuss transition assessment fundamentals. Neither one of these will be in a lot of detail, but just an overview to introduce us to the topic of today. We're going to review one commercial, meaning that you need to buy it, you need to purchase it if you want to use it, and two no-cost pictorial interest inventories. And we will have a discussion of teacher-made tools using drawings, photos, and even videos if you have that level of digital skill to make that happen. And then we'll finally use existing videos to explore career choices and how to make these videos into a career assessment tool itself. And we'll summarize all of it. Ready to get started? Let's go. We got a lot to cover. So the purpose of special education, as defined in the very first paragraph, Idea 2004, is it's a free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet students' unique needs. And, this is the big one, and to prepare our students with IEPs for further education, employment, and independent living. If you didn't know, by the way, this is where the focus on secondary IEPs come from. When we have to include post-secondary goals into our IEPs, it's because that's the purpose of special education. If you're a third grade teacher of students with IEPs, you're working to prepare our students for life after high school. If you're a middle school teacher, the same thing. If you are a high school teacher, high school special education teacher, you are also preparing our students with IEPs for life after high school. Takes a special relevance when students are in high school because it's our last chance, so to speak, to prepare students for life after high school. And there are a lot of skills, not just academic skills, but non-academic skills that we can teach students to learn now to prepare them for life after high school. So let's look briefly at a couple transition assessment fundamentals. Number one, IEPs must include post-secondary and annual transition goal. This is established by the federal law and subsequent regulations, most notably Indicator 13, for those of you who know about Indicator 13. And our IEP transition goals must be based upon age-appropriate transition assessments. To me, age-appropriate has a number of meanings. One is chronologically, but also it's an assessment that matches the student's skills and abilities, one that they can successfully interact with. Does that make sense? In other words, for someone who cannot read, you wouldn't want to have them take an assessment that is written. It just wouldn't be meaningless. You might be able to read it to them, and if they can understand the words, then that's okay. But if you want them to do it independently and to fully understand it, we have to find a means for students to interact with the assessment. And our assessments that we use have to be related to further education, employment, and independent living. The law says when needed, but when won't these skills be needed? That's the question I think we should ask, and use data to show that we don't need to focus on independent living rather than just dismiss it and say, that's for the classroom down the hallway. The Council for Exceptional Children is our country's largest professional organization for special education teacher. It's an organization that has many subdivisions. One of those divisions, and it's my favorite division, is the Division on Career Development and Transition. And a number of years ago, Pat Sitlington and her colleagues got together in a DCDT board-approved and through a board-approved process, created a statement for the division on what transition assessment should be. Now listen to this. Transition assessment, it's an ongoing process, point one, of collecting data on needs, preferences, and interests as they relate to the demands of where this person is now, the current and future working, educational, and living environments. And these data then, the assessment results, serve as the common thread in the transition assessment process and form the basis for defining IEP goals and services. Whoa, can you believe this? Something that professionals wrote, almost lock, stock, and barrel, became the ongoing special education law of what we have to follow. Wouldn't it be nice if all of the things we need to do in special education actually derive this way? It's not the only time you see this with transition education practice, by the way. So what this means then is the focus is on the future roles of our students as worker and citizen, and the student choice is a major theme of the whole transition process. And that transition process is ongoing, future-focused, and person-centered. What this means, for some students, we might do transition assessments one time a year, because annually we have to do this, at least annually. For some students, it might be a couple times a year. For some students, especially those who really have a limited understanding of what job options are or career options, it's something we might have to do weekly, maybe even more often than that. So it's an ongoing process, and that ongoing aspect is defined by who that person happens to be. As much as possible, and with support, students direct their own transition planning process, and the results then the results produce a match between student strengths, their needs, preferences, and the demands of their future Transition has been around long enough. Some of the due process cases that began in the schools and the districts have filtered up into federal district courts. And a few of these have focused on transition assessment. And Prince and her colleagues a few years ago examined these district court findings. And here's what they found. They found, just like how the law says, we have to use multiple transition assessments. Notice the S. That means plural, more than one, 2, 3, 4, 5. The number isn't defined, but it has to be more than one across transition domains. In other words, we just can't do an interest inventory and be done with it. We have to do an interest inventory will count, but we also have to do another type of transition assessment. Could be a self-determination assessment, could be an independent living assessment. You know, there's a variety of assessments we could do across the different transition domains. So more than one assessment across more than one domain. And this is the finding that the courts have added to our understanding of what we need to do for transition. At least one assessment in a student's transition assessment battery. Those are the assessments that we're going to give a particular student. At least one of these assessments needs to be a tool that has ample supporting validity evidence, meaning that it was developed in a sound way and we have psychometric data supporting the results of that assessment and its use as a transition assessment tool for adolescents with disabilities. Does that make sense? The other assessments we use in a transition assessment battery can be informal assessments, meaning they have little or no supporting validity evidence. And either fortunately or unfortunately, transition assessment for youth with disabilities or adolescents or transition age youth, however you want to describe it, the field hasn't been around that long. And so we don't have a huge inventory of transition assessments that have ample validity evidence to support their use for adolescents with disabilities. But there are enough that we can have at least one in most of our transition assessment batteries. And the courts have also agreed that we have to maximize student participation in the transition planning process. And that includes, by the way, the assessment process. In other words, we just don't do it to the student. We have to involve students in the transition assessment process. When it comes to career interest inventories, especially, there are some things that we have to be careful of. Is that the results we get will really vary on the person's background, their experience with the world they live in, and their ability to read the words, to read the pictures, to pick out the pertinent information from a video. So we must do the best we can to make sure the student really understands what they're looking at. They might be looking at a picture of someone wearing a uniform doing a particular job at a setting. And the setting's real obvious and the uniform's real obvious. And the person thinks, you know, I really like that uniform, so I want to work there. They're not paying attention to what the job is or the task. And so if we're really interested in focusing on what the task is, we have to deliver our assessment stimuli in a way that focuses as much as we can on the key information. Another warning, so to speak, is transition assessment, career interest inventory results often will vary from time to time to time. It might differ once a year, it might differ every month, but don't be alarmed by that, because that's really the way it ought to be. Because as we go through life, think of our own lives. As we've gone through our life, we've had probably have had, most of us have had many different long-term career goals. I remember the one time I met with a school counselor when I was in high school. I had a real small high school, and we had a career, actually a guidance counselor for one of the years when I was in high school. And I told him I wanted to be a archaeologist. Still have an interest in archaeology, and I still subscribe to National Geographic magazine, but I still, I didn't go into archaeology. And so, as we grow and mature and learn more about ourselves and look at what's available and what we'd like to do, and all kind of factors come together to make career decisions, is that choices are going to change. And that's okay, and we ought to expect that. But what we want to do is teach students the process of making choices, logical, meaningful choices. There are many benefits of using career interest assessments. And one of the biggest is if we take the entire universe of jobs, a career interest inventory will enable us to come in and just take a little pie slice out of that whole universe of jobs. And then it will allow the individual to expand that into the jobs that exist, into that little slice that they thought they would like to look at today. And they can learn a lot more about it. They can look at the requirements, the duties, the pay, how often somebody gets hired, and so forth. And what's cool, when we use our own assessments we make that represent our own community. Say we go around, take photos of different jobs that are available to adolescents with disabilities in the community that really kind of match what their first level entry skill job would be. Boy, that adds a lot of social validity to an assessment. And it becomes a very strong tool if you use it right, just based on the fact that you're using local choices. So we expand the ability to students for students to learn more about what's available, and it gives us the chance of making very socially valid interest inventories ourselves, matching the needs of our own community and what's available in our own communities. So what we're going to do in this webcast is look at 6 different assessments. First of all, we're going to look at a pictorial one. Not that this is the only one, but this is of the ones that are commercially available. It's one of my favorites. And I'm not going to critique or badmouth other picture interest career surveys. You'll have to look at those and ultimately determine yourself if they appear appropriate for your students or not. But we're going to look at the Picture Interest Career Survey, known as PICS. We'll look at the teacher-made Pictorial Interest Inventory, which is downloadable and free. We'll look at the Career Interest Inventory Pictorial, made out of clip arts, which also is available for free. And then we'll learn how to make your own assessments, teacher-made assessments. And there's a whole battery of videos, great career videos that we have access to at no cost, by the way, that we can use for exploring what students have decided they'd like to look at. And we can also use these videos as a transition assessment process. So that's what we're going to cover in this webcast. So let's jump in and get busy. The PICS, the Picture Interest Career Survey. You can purchase it from several locations if this is one you like. It's from Bolden. It's an assessment that has some supporting validity evidence, but in my opinion, it lacks a sufficient amount to be considered an assessment with that really has ample supporting validity evidence. As you can see, you get 25 copies for about $70. It's a paper pencil assessment. Here's some details about it. So there's 36 panels of 3 illustrations per panels. Think of a comic strip in the Sunday paper. You get 3 illustrations in 1 panel. So there's 36 panels, and we ask students to circle the picture in each panel that they like. Only one in each panel that they like, and we want them to always circle a picture in each panel. And even if they don't like any of those, well, which of these do you like the best out of those that you don't like? Get the idea? So the results then are presented in Holland's career categories. You'll see what those are here in just a second. It looks at jobs that are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And let's look at the assessment itself. This is a screenshot of one of the pages. And so we see that panel number 5, it has 3 illustrations. Looks like it's a vet tech looking at a dog, a basketball coach diagramming a play, and a technician either installing or servicing a home TV satellite. Student, which one of these would you like the best? So you just go and circle the one. We go to the next panel. The panel 6A looks like it's a technician of some type at a nuclear reactor facility. Maybe it's a nuclear power plant. B is looks like he is helping or she is helping someone at some type of a care facility. He's got scrubs on, it looks like, so maybe a hospital, who knows what kind of facility, but he's some kind of a support person helping someone walk down the hallway. And C, it looks like an artist with a chisel and a hammer making a sculpture, an artist. Student, which one of these would you like the best? And then we total up all the results, and this becomes it becomes a graph, a bar graph, and you can look at, so say for investigative, there ended up being 9 jobs in the investigative category. So you would just literally color in that bar up to number 9. So we have a bar graph. And then you can hold this up, the student can hold this up and say, see, mom and dad, the one I like the best is artistic. And in this category, there's a couple jobs I think I would really like to do. So I'm going to explore more about those jobs this next year. Get the idea? Now, some critiques of this particular assessment are of, let's take 6A, the technician at the nuclear power plant. So the person's using a checklist. So the person most likely can read if they're using a checklist, unless it's a pictorial checklist, of course. So why would we have a nuclear technician of some type in a picture interest assessment? And the same way with the basketball coach. Almost every coach I know is a teacher, and teachers, unless they have a severe visual impairment, have to they end up reading to some degree as the way through college. And you can see the way that the coach is pointing at the diagram can obviously see what's up there. So I don't think it's a vision problem. So it seems to be, and this is one of the critiques I hear from educators, some of the jobs, the technical characteristics of the jobs, the requirements of the jobs don't match necessarily that of someone who would need a pictorial interest assessment. So other than that, there's another one in here of a judge. I didn't copy that particular screenshot, but another illustration of a judge doing the same thing. So that's the PICS. The Pictorial Interest Inventory is another assessment. And here, this is a teacher-made assessment. Don't know who made it. Maybe it was made by a team of educators. I don't know. I wish I knew. because I'd like to tell the person how much I like this and how often I use it as a demonstration of something we can do. So it's 16 pages of color photos with 3 photos per page for a total of 48 choices. Students pick 1 per page by placing a mark under the picture they like the most. We count marks by the type of jobs, and you'll see what types of jobs are here in a second. And included are 8 entry-level or minimal training jobs. Unlike the previous assessment, which looked at jobs that had some pretty advanced skills to it, this particular assessment are for those that are entry-level that have minimal training requirements. And there's 5 or more jobs within each job area or type of job. It's a real simple score sheet. And guess what? It's free. You can download it at this website or just Google Pictorial Interest Inventory. And you might have to scroll through some garbage before you find it. But that's how I always find it. So here's what it looks like. This is the first page, Pictorial Interest Inventory. And these are the types of employment settings and jobs. So one, we have retail, cashier, bottom right-hand corner, retail, cashier, store greeter, cart retrieval, customer service. Automotive, top left-hand corner, my left-hand corner. Automotive, auto mechanic, tires, brakes, gas station attendant, auto body repair, so forth. Maybe it's materials and handling, grocery stalker, bagger, pallet mover, unloading trucks, packing, unpacking boxes, and so forth. So it covers a lot of basic entry-level jobs that are available in many of the communities that our students live in. So here's what it looks like. Now, I think the developers of this took some of the photos, just found them on the internet and used them, and may have taken pictures of others. But we have 3 photos on a page, a big spot for a check or a mark, and we give it to the students, say, which one do you like on this page? And they check what they like. Which one do you like on this page? Filing papers. Looks like this person is cooking something at a cafeteria of some type, commercial laundry. Which one do you think you'd like to do? Mopping a floor, framing a house, moving boxes and a pallet with this cool tool to move the pallets around. What would you like? Same thing here, automotive tech, filing books at a library or a bookstore or school library. Here it looks like a food prep person, a sous chef, so to speak. And then we take the key letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. You see on the top of these, each one has a key letter. We count up the number of A's, the number of B's, the number of C's, and so forth. And then we know the interest area. And then we get to explore in that particular interest area. Say the person has the highest number in E, which is landscape and building trades. So then we have to explore in landscape and building trades to see what job there the person might like the best. You see how we go through the whole universe of entry-level jobs in this particular community, and we land on landscape and building trades, and then we have to drill into those, expand it to see what's in there that the student might like, that matches their interests, their skills, their needs, as well as just do they like it or not. Make sense? Here's another one, similar concept, but arranged a little differently. It's the Career Interest Inventory Pictorial. They use clip arts to make this. And there's 6 Holland career areas, and they're simple to understand, language added below each one. And it's like this: realistic is the doer, investigative is the thinker. So we use the Holland category like what we saw in the earlier version. And my dog is whining, so just excuse me one second while I let my dog in. Want to come in, Wally? Come on. I don't think my dog liked the idea. Come here, Wally. Can you see Wally? Here's my dog, my buddy Wally. He's my 100-pound, 9-year-old Labradoodle. He's just the best dog. And when we're in the house together, he likes to hang around me, and it's kind of noisy outside. And so I closed the door, but he wanted to come in and be with me. So he's now laying down on his bed, and I should have done that to begin with. So apologize for the interruption. But anyway, back to the clip art version of the interest inventory. So what this author did is divided the jobs into Holland categories and tweaked the description a little bit. Rather than just realistic, the author of this said realistic is the doer, investigative is the thinker, and jobs match up under that category. So there's 6 jobs per career area across 6 panels of pictures. And the user checks preferred jobs in each category. So they could check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 within each panel, as many as they wanted or none at all. And then we summarize the results, and then we find out what is the category that the person likes the most. And then we can go in and explore to learn more about those jobs in that preferred area. There's a website to download it, or just Google that particular name. So here's what it's looked like. And it sure looks to me it was made with clip art. So we have, here's a couple screenshots. Enterprising, the persuader, talk with people, sell things, plan parties, persuade people, lead a group, run a business. And what I really like about this format is, so we have the illustration. Let's look at persuade people. Middle of the top column, see the 2 workers with the red coat, and then we apparently have a guy with the red tie and a white shirt. Underneath that is a caption that enables the student, if they can read a little bit, or the educator to really tell the student what that picture is. You know, these are informal assessments. They're not standardized assessment. It's not like an intelligence test where you only have 10 minutes to complete this section. We can take as much time as we want. We can talk about the pictures as much as we would like. We could explain what these illustrations are on any of these assessments, by the way, because the point is we want the students to understand what it is that they're choosing or not choosing so they can make an informed choice. And having the caption underneath this one illustration with the 2 workers with the red jacket, I would have never have guessed that this is a job where it involves persuasion. That I would not have thought. Or look at the end of that particular row, run a business. It's a woman talking on a phone, well-dressed, with a book, and we can see out her window, there's a clock on the wall. Just by looking at that, I would not know that she's running a business. And so we have to, the captions really help understand what that is. This isn't my favorite assessment because I find some disjunction between the illustrations and the caption, but it's the only one that I find available that really combines these 2 excellent features of illustrations and wording, so that if you make your own assessment, it gives you some good ideas of how to do this. But there are some useful things that can come out of this assessment too, so don't dismiss it. The next row I think is really pretty good. Conventional, the organizer, filing, cashier, data entry, keeping records. Looking at that illustration, I don't know if that would be a plan or not, or even looks to me like that person is weighing a head of lettuce, not sorting. So there's a term in picture reading, or it's called iconoclasticity. And does that photo actually display its meaning or not? And some of them, I think, do a really good job, like filing, being a cashier. Others, well, we're going to have to do some explaining to the student what that particular picture means. And that's the problem we have with illustrations or photos is they're limited in how well one still picture can adequately illustrate what's going on. It gets better when we can use videos. It's even better yet with videos and audio with open captioning. That's even better yet. But yet for some students, that still isn't quite enough. But we give it our best shot. Realistic, the doer, build things, care for pets, lawn and garden, work outdoors. Investigative, the thinker, I do research, I read, do math, etc. You get the idea. And then we just look at the panels where the most were checked. And then we go to the summary sheet and we check which one the person enjoyed the most. So it might be checked enterprising, the persuader. And so then we go explore and blow up that section of jobs in the community that are enterprising type jobs. More on how to find out what those are in a little bit. So there's another category that to me, especially for students who can't use written inventories, that I really like the most. They're teacher-made assessments. And so how it works is we go in and we take photos, digital photos on our cameras. Boy, having cameras have simplified this process so much. We just take pictures of different tasks that represent different jobs around the school, around the community, where a student lives. And then we turn those into assessment. And here's where the art comes in, is how you actually arrange them into an assessment. But we'll talk about that in a second. And because we take the photos in the community where the person is, it becomes immediately socially validated because we're using local community settings. And if you focus on those entry-level jobs that your students might most likely get while they're in high school or out of high school, it's not meant to be a lifelong career decision tool, but a way to teach students how to choose their first jobs, to add choice, to look at their skills, to look at their interests, to look at their weaknesses, quite frankly, and how all those match together with the job they might like to do in the summer, or perhaps on the weekends, or once they get out of school. And when we use these assessments over time, like once a week or once a month, and we track results, they become a reliable source of information as well. These don't work very well for just a one-shot assessment. It's oftentimes we have to repeat it, and then ideally the person has a chance to go into the field, to actually look at that job, to stand in it, to smell it, to do it for a little bit, to really add meaning to see if they really like it or not. So we make these unique to the person's context. So here's how we make these assessments, or how I would always make it is open Microsoft Word, insert tables, and adjust the size of the table to show how many you want in a row, whether it be one picture or 3 or 4 or 5, and you can adjust the size of the boxes based upon who the student is that you happen to be working with. Then you insert the digital photo or you insert the drawing, and I'll show you about drawings in a second. And then we add a row or two below to cue the context. So if you're going to have one row of pictures on a page, you want to set your table up for 2 rows. One row of cells will be larger for the photos. The other row of cells will be smaller for writing in the caption. So you can center it to be right underneath the middle of the photo, and then just remove all the lines or keep the major lines that you want. And you have a great teacher-made assessment that only took a few minutes to make. And in doing this, it becomes unique to a person's context. It could be jobs in the school where they work at. It could look at particular skills or characteristics of jobs. One of the things we found out, by the way, when we were looking at developing teacher-made interest inventories, is that for people who have never worked before, who really had a limited understanding of what jobs were out in the world they lived at, it wasn't the environment, it wasn't the task itself that for many people weren't the deciding factors. It was the characteristics of the job. I get to wear a uniform or I don't get to wear a uniform. It's a noisy place or a quiet place. It's inside or outside. Those types of things often depended upon the unique characteristics of the person. Does that make sense? So there are some job drawings that you can obtain at no cost. You can download these from the Brooks Publishing Company, their website at no cost. Here's the website. Just archive brookspublishing.com/picturebank. And then the accompanying book that these illustrations come from can be downloaded at no charge from the OU Xero Center website. And some of these drawings are also at the Xero Center website. Here's what it looks like when you go download these. So this is the page at the brookspublishing.com picture bank. And you can download a sheet of photos that are tasks, jobs, and activities, objects, people, places, or others. Or you can download all of them if you want them all in one big flat. And what they look like this. Here's a sample page of job, task, and activities. And what we found when we were playing around with this for a number of years, trying to figure out the best way to make these, is that many times students wouldn't focus on the essence of what the photo was showing. They liked the color, or they liked the store where it was at, or they, Wally, what's the matter? What you barking at, huh? I don't think he understands why I'm talking to my computer. So what we did is we went in and we took photos. Most of these illustrations on this page began as a digital photo. And we fed the photo into this piece of software that would then create line drawings. And we had to go in and touch up the line drawings. And what we found for most students were the line drawings ended up being the best way to depict the essence of what we were looking at. Like, you see the one bringing in carts? Where we learned this was, it was that there were several different grocery stores in the town where we made these. And we found for one person, if it had a certain background of the store in it, didn't like it. But if it was from another store, he liked it, because he and his parents would always shop at one store and they didn't like the other store. So we didn't know if he was choosing it because of the store or because of the job. So if you take the store out and just focus on bringing carts, you get to the essence of it. And when we just had bringing in carts, he never chose that. He chose it because of the store. That was our conclusion. And so anyway, but there are some illustrations. Look in the bottom row, the second one in from my left. We're clocking in and out. It's hard to depict processes in a photo or even in an illustration, especially in illustrations. And so we have beginning time, ending time, and a time clock. And some of these you just have to explain to people what they are. Or maybe use videos. That's another option to really show how that happens. But there's lots of tools now that have become very easy for us to do. And if you have some basic, simple editing skills for videos that you can do on your computer, boy, you can do a whole lot of things with teacher-made assessments nowadays. Another feature to think about when we're using illustrative assessments is how many of these are you going to use per page? In this case, we decided we wanted to have 2 per page, and the person would mark the one they liked the best, just circle it or mark it or check it or somehow. The person could see well enough to get 2 of these. Here she was sweeping the floor, and here she was washing the window. And we'd ask the person, which one do you like the best? And they would either point to it or circle it or X it, whatever the person could do. And we keep track of all these choices across time. And for someone else, it might just be 1 drawing per page. I remember we had one young woman that we were helping to do an initial choice assessment with, and all she had was peripheral vision, meaning that she couldn't see straight on, she could just see off the side of her eye. So if she was looking at that picture, she'd have to turn her head sideways and see it. And I remember the job coach said she has no idea what she wants. We just don't have any way of communicating with her. I said, well, let's just try this. So we got a bunch of pictures. Don't remember exactly how many, but that we made their line drawings, 1 per page. Put it on a little table-like setting where the person could look at them. Person turned sideways, and we asked her to select the one you like. She'd pick one up, toss it down. And the job coach looked and said, she doesn't know what she's choosing. She's just choosing something. And I said, well, let's just keep track of it over time. And so we did this for a week, at the beginning of the job experience, at the end of the job experience, we would have her select what she liked. And sure enough, her choices became very, very predictable based on what we showed her. We showed her jobs at the Humane Society where she was working at, and we showed her jobs from other places. And about 90% of the time, she chose jobs at the Humane Society where she was working at, that she was happy being there. She liked it. So all of the other subjective measures showed that she enjoyed being there. And now we had evidence of her choosing that she'd like to be there as well. Sorting mail. So we can do a lot with videos. Also, video exploration. But before we look at how to use videos in assessment, let's look at how we can use videos for exploration. We're really lucky is the Career One Stop website, which is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education, has made, I've never counted them, but there's a whole host of brief job videos. They cover jobs across all the different career clusters. They also organize them by skill and ability. They're available in English and in Spanish, and each are open captioned underneath. And they're short. They're about maybe 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes long or so. And they're great for career exploration and even for turning it into a career assessment. So let's see what this looks like. So the process is we, through one of our, after we've gone through a career assessment, we take the top area that the person would like, and then we go in and they choose those job areas that match what they like the best. And we take their top career area, and then they start watching videos, and they look at the duties, the requirements, the job outlook. And there's then lots of things we can do with this. We could ask students to do a PowerPoint presentation if they could do that, report back to the teacher the top jobs they liked and why they liked, whatever fits well into your class. I know some teachers have students do a class presentation on what they found with their career exploration process using these videos. So we explore those. So here's just some of the videos that are available. videos in finance, education and training, business management, arts, audio, video, tech and communications, architecture. There's 16 different career clusters, and they choose a job in one of these. That's why I wish all of the assessments we had, actually the results were delivered in career clusters instead of Holland's categories, because there's no really good crossover match that I've ever found between Holland's categories and career clusters. So you've got to look and explore what the Holland cluster is, like realistic, and then see what are the jobs there, and then try to guide the student to the appropriate video cluster. So we have, here's a cluster. Let's look at the agriculture, food, and natural sciences, and look at all of the videos they have within that particular job cluster. Agricultural engineers. Wally, what's wrong with you? You've never done this before. Shh. Animal breeders, animal caretakers, animal scientists. How about a dog trainer that can keep the dog quiet while I'm doing a video presentation, huh, Wally? Buyers and purchasing agents, environmental engineers, fallers. If you want a good activity in class, have students find unusual job names like a faller. Who knows what a faller? Well, I know what a faller is, but do your students know what a faller is? Have them come up and guess what jobs that a faller, what does a faller do? And then go actually look at that particular job duties and requirements. It's a fun in-class interest assignment to teach students how to do this. So these are just a selection of the videos, everything from farm contract laborers, which are very experience would be helpful, but not always needed, up to, agricultural engineers, which are pretty high level jobs, or animal breeders. So here's kind of what the video looks like. This is a logging worker career video. It gives you a description, and by the way, you can also print out the transcripts of these, of each video, if that helps. But description uses axes or chainsaws to fell trees, using knowledge of tree characteristics and cutting techniques to control direction of fall. And then we have our video transcript, so you can read what's in this particular video as well, and then we just watch it and to see what happens. But then what's cool about this, we also then, after we watch the video, we can go in and look at average pay, the career outlook, and the training requirements. So the average pay is about $43,000 a year. The career outlook, however, is below average. New opportunities are less likely in the future. And the typical training is just a high school diploma or its equivalent. So we get a lot of information in these videos. So students think, yeah, I'd like to do this. But once they realize that, chances are I won't get a job in it, I need to keep looking. We can also use these videos as assessments if you like. So this is great for students who have reading issues or who need to see more detail about a job to know what it's really about. The videos are generally of high interest to students. These videos from the Career One site, each one includes information about the requirements, typical pay, employment potential. And it's really useful for those students whose the written interest inventories are questionable, and maybe what the persons say they like and the results of the interest inventories don't match. And so we use a video assessment process to help make the two align better. But what we have to do then is to create a recording system for the student to keep track of their results, so we know what their true interest and preferences are. So here's one way it could work. The job, a feller. And then are the requirements okay for me? Yes or no? Is the pay okay? Yes or no? What about the hiring opportunities? Plus or minus. So what's my interest in this job? 0, 1, 2, or 3. And for each video they look at, they can fill this out. And so then at the end, they have a really good summary. Or if they don't have the skills to fill this out, you could ask them this and just note the request for just note what they're saying about each particular video. And then we have this record across time to come up with a really useful career interest inventory. Make sense? So career assessment, the videos aren't the one-stop. And when we do this assessment, we ask the student to pick one cluster or go into an assigned cluster that you assign as a class to look at, to learn how to do this, and then to report back on all the things in the videos, the duties, the requirements, the job outlook, their thoughts about each job, and students' interests in each job. And then, as I said earlier, they can make a PowerPoint presentation with their top 3 choices and address the duties, requirements, and outlook, or present it to you or share it, all based on what the students' skills and what your class goals are for. So to wrap this section up now, these interest inventories, using pictures, illustrations, and videos, may be a really useful addition to your transition assessment batteries. But remember, they can't be used alone. We need other transition assessments into the mix too. When we use local assessments, teacher-made local assessments across time, and we track the results, it becomes a very valid and reliable assessment. The key is we want to find one or more assessments that students like and can understand. And so one thing I know teachers are increasingly doing is, as they're thinking about what assessments to provide a student or a group of students, is they'll say, students, here are the assessments we're thinking about using. I want you to pick the one that you would like to do right now to help identify what job you would like in the future, and let students pick it. And then because you picked one, I get to pick one, or however you want to arrange it. But if we get student choice involved in even selecting the assessment they use, that adds a lot of interest into the whole process. Well, thank you very much for the Illinois Center for Transition and Work. My name is Jim Martin. Thanks for joining us for this webcast. Bye-bye.